There is something about antiques that just light me up. Between the craftsmanship, the history, and the charm that new pieces just don't always have. But I think there's a certain connotation behind antiques and them feeling outdated or old, or that they only work in a certain style home, which could not be further from the truth. However, it can be intimidating knowing how to bring antiques into your home and make them feel curated rather than cluttered. So in this video, I'm gonna go through why designers swear by secondhand pieces, how they instantly elevate a space, and most importantly, how you can use them to create a curated, collected home that reflects your style, no matter what it is. If you're not sure where to start with bringing antiques into your home, I have put together some mood boards to show you how they can fit into any aesthetic, and I also have some tips on how you can get started. Last week, I brought you antique shopping with me, and as I was editing the footage for that video, I realized a lot of the pieces that I came across could fit into a couple of different style categories, and realized that not everybody may realize that you can find antiques in any style. But before we get started, I want to talk about why antiquing and using secondhand pieces matters. First and foremost would be that it's just more sustainable than getting things new. Our planet is crying out for us to reassess our consumption habits, and this is a great way to do that. Pieces that were made decades or even centuries ago have already had the resources expended that went into making them, and the only carbon emission, or the only thing going back out into our environment from you bringing them into your home, is the gas it took to go pick them up, as opposed to new pieces which take a lot of resources, cause a lot of pollution, and just aren't made to last. Antique pieces, vintage pieces, secondhand pieces typically have a little bit of a craftsman quality to them and are just made using better materials. For example, in my last video, I showed you this tray here, which is a hand-carved wooden tray. Now, a couple of things about this, but starting with the quality. This piece was clearly made from a tree that was a little bit older. Maybe this was made from heartwood or a denser type of wood, but it was made from a tree that had time to develop density within the wood. Whereas sometimes newer pieces, newer wood pieces that are in your typical big box corporation stores are made with wood from trees that grow a little bit faster, that were planted solely for the purpose of cutting them down to make bowls, trays, your little knick-knacky decor pieces, the little knots. They're made to be cut down to make product for consumers. So the pieces that you're bringing in risk splitting or just not lasting as long. They're not gonna maybe age super well. This one does have a piece that you can see broke off of it, but that's because this piece was hand carved, and so it was man-made weakness in the wood, and it got bumped at some point that caused it to break. Which brings me to another reason you should bring antiques into your home, and that is the character and charm that you're bringing in. Like I said, this was a hand-carved wood piece that somebody went in with a chisel, with little tools to make. They put care into curating and crafting this item, that now I'm bringing that care and energy into my home, and it just brings a level of warmth that a bowl that a machine came in with a big drum drill thing and hollowed out the bottom, and like there was no personality put into making it. I'm not like hating on those pieces or saying they're bad. I'm just saying this has more character than your mass-produced bowls, more warmth, more imperfections, which tell a story. And this tray has a history. So antiques just usually have more charm, more history. They're made by craftsmen rather than machines. and they're usually made from better quality materials as well, in addition to not producing new emissions and waste. Now, you can certainly love brand new pieces, and there are new pieces that are made with quality, but if you're getting all new pieces that don't have a ton of charm or that were kind of mass produced, it's a little bit more likely that you will get bored of them quicker, and they will end up in a thrift store or a landfill or something else. And if they go to a thrift store because you're getting rid of it, because you're bored of it, more than likely somebody else got rid of it because they're bored of it. So in addition to the new carbon emissions that went into making the piece, you then contribute to waste in the disposal of it. Whereas if you went with antique pieces that are a little bit more close to your personality, you're less likely to get rid of them. You're not creating new waste. So I'm not demonizing new products. I'm just saying I do think you should try to opt for antique and secondhand pieces whenever you can, because it's going to benefit the planet and it's going to benefit you, bringing new character into your home and lasting for longer. Plus, if you're not replacing things all the time, it's better on your budget as well. Now, to show you how antiques can fit into any budget, I have my computer right here with my mood boards pulled up. So looking at these, I want to show you that no matter what your style is, there are antiques that will fit in and help you create a unique personal style and just add some warmth and personality into our usual style categories. First, looking at the coastal style. Last week, I came across these top two items, the two sets of glasses, in the same store, but in different areas. The set of two were ceramic pieces with a little blue bird painted on the side, and then the set of six were some blue and white marble onyx goblets. And then the painting below that was found at a separate store. It does need a little bit of restoration because of some of the varnish on it, but all three of those pieces were found within an hour of one another. And then this little brass gold capuchel lampshade was found down in Virginia over my little Christmas break that I took. And then this big olive jar here was found on an antique trip back in the fall. These other two little pieces here, I haven't actually shown on any of my antique shopping trip videos, but I come across brass crabs all the time because I live near Maryland. So I see them all the time near me, but there's also a ton of other brass animal figurines and decor and things like that. When I was still living in Wyoming, I came across one of these brass cranes here that I do have in my collection. But I've seen them in a couple of places as well. So all of these coastal pieces have been found from all over and paired with some newer pieces that look like they could be from Serena and Lily or Pottery Barn or any of the typical like coastal carrying style places, and just add a level of warmth into the space. Even these caned chairs here in this board are something that could really easily be found secondhand. Facebook Marketplace always has caned and woven dining chairs. Plus, you add a new faux plant into our olive jar, you restore that painting and add a frame to it, you get a new stick base lamp, add the capuchel shade to it, and mix maybe some newer dining pieces in with your antique ones, and you just create a really collected, warm, curated look that still feels modern but shows a little bit more personality than your Serena and Lily catalog, which again, there's nothing wrong with, but that's Serena and Lily's brand, not your personal style. So you can blend the brand styles that you like with your personal interests. But maybe a light, bright coastal space is not your thing, or you don't live near the coast, so it might not make sense. Another style that's really popular right now is like the French country style. Looking at these pieces here, I found an antique farm table last week that could be used as a dining table, it could be used for a dining nook, as a desk, it could be used for a myriad of things, but I think that fits really well in this French style, paired with this pendant that I found in the same store as this beautiful oil painting with a gorgeous frame and a nice moody vibe to it. Last week, I came across this crock with the hand-painted black detail on it, And a couple months prior to that, I got this hand-painted blue piece that the base and the lid work together, but also separately. And then of course, my mortar and pestle that I shared with you last week that I could not get off of my mind for a month and invested a little bit in it. And then I came across also on Facebook Marketplace this little rocking chair here with the swan detail. The cushions have been reupholstered in a linen and the back was left a little bit more open and undone, showing like some burlap and the upholstery nails, which I thought was beautiful. Working together with some salvaged doors, a Roman clay finish on the wall, as well as some newer pieces like a picture light and a coffee table and a newer jute rug. This can just help create a French country aesthetic with antique pieces that may or may not be French themselves, but lend themselves to that style. But because these pieces aren't explicitly French, they can also work in other styles as well. Looking at our same farm table, maybe your style is on the countryside, but not necessarily French. Maybe you like more of like an English or more of a cottage vibe. Pairing that same table with these little etched sherbet glasses that I came across, this beautiful still life that was painted on a piece of wood rather than canvas. I came across this little alabaster lamp that you would just need to add a new shade to, as well as this blue salt crock and the salvaged tiles that I came across that I thought would be beautiful, repurposed and turned into a piece of artwork. You could frame them, or you could even use them as a trivet for your hot pots and pans. Looking at all of these pieces together, you can create a lighter, brighter, cottagey aesthetic that still feels warm and inviting. These wishbone chairs here, although new, lend themselves to the same style. Maybe you bring in some newer hardware on your cabinetry, or bring in a new faucet, some handcrafted artisan bowls off of Etsy or from a farmer's market. These things can pair beautifully with your collected antique pieces. But maybe a country aesthetic is not your thing at all, whether that be French or cottage. Maybe you don't like things so bright and light, and your style is just a little bit darker and moodier, and you don't subscribe to one style or another, or only like things from one region of the world. Last week, I came across some beautiful pieces from all sorts of different cultures that I thought would fit together beautifully and create a more eclectic, curated, collected, worldly feel. Now, this goes without saying, but a style like this really does need to have care taken when you're pulling things from different cultures and just making sure you're sensitive and respectful in that process. But you hear the advice all the time that when you travel, instead of picking up postcards and keychains and things like that, your typical souvenirs, go to some local shops and pick up decor pieces or things like that to bring home as souvenirs to remind you of your travels and where you've been in the world. I know I've given this tip myself. However, if you're anything like me, you cannot afford thousands of dollars to go on a vacation to Egypt or Morocco or the UK or Japan or any fun places overseas, even just to the other side of the US. It might not be in your budget to travel to those places as bad as you want to. So antiquing is a great way to get that same collected feeling. Last week, I came across several pieces that I thought would create a beautiful collected worldly feel, like these bookends here, this pharaoh painted on rice paper. There's this smaller vase that had a beautiful landscape scene painted on it, this hand-painted dish with more of a Mexican motif on it, as well as these blue pottery pieces that are a little bit more Moroccan, Middle Eastern, Indian than like our typical chinoiserie or our toile blue motifs, as well as this woven basket here. These pieces were all found at the exact same place. And then in the same day at a separate store, I came across this brass coffee grinder from the Ottoman Empire and this carved wooden bird statue on a metal base. I thought that particularly in an office space, these pieces would work beautifully together. Now, there's a lot going on here, but I promise these pieces are all integrated in, as well as several other pieces that I've come across while antiquing. Some of them I've picked up myself and have them in my home. And then there are some newer pieces mixed into this very eclectic space as well. Which brings me to, how do you incorporate vintage, antique, secondhand pieces into a more modern aesthetic? First of all, I would look at what style are you going for. I showed 4 here, but this was just to show that antiques fit in any style. So that includes more than just these 4 that I have shown. So start by just knowing what aesthetic or what blend of aesthetics you're going for, and research some stores that are associated with that style. For example, I've mentioned Serena and Lily, which has some beautiful pieces. Go and see how they put things together and make note of some repeated things that you're seeing. And then when you go to the antique store, look for those things. Look for the colors, the patterns, the materials, just knowing what goes into the aesthetic that you like, and then keeping an eye out for those elements when you're shopping will really help you find pieces that fit into that aesthetic, even if they don't scream coastal or farmhouse or whatever. But with antiques, if you fill your home with them, that fear of things feeling dated or cluttered or anything dusty and old, that can happen. So there is a balance. You do want to incorporate some newer pieces. And I think there's a couple of ways to do this. If you've heard of Pierce and Ward, they are a design studio that work with a lot of celebrities, and they use a lot of antiques and vintage pieces. And I know their rule of thumb is 80% vintage, 20% new. I think this is a great ratio and guideline to follow. Another way you could look at it is kind of like breaking up by category, like looking at your lighting, maybe getting all of your ceiling lights and your table lamps vintage, but your floor lamps and your sconces are all new. Or maybe doing all of your hard surfaces like your tables, dressers, armoires, things like that, doing all of those antique, but all of your soft pieces like your sofa, chair, furniture, doing all of that new. Or maybe you do it by finish, and all of your brass finishes are gonna be antique, but all of your chrome finishes are gonna be new. Just things like that. Do some research, look at certain designers, Pierce and Ward, a great one, use them, and see how they are blending old and new, and use those general guidelines that works for you. As far as the guidelines that I follow in my own home, they don't exist. I just do what speaks to me. Most of what I'm drawn to is antique or vintage inspired. I personally prefer all of my decor secondhand, or if it's a newer piece, I like it to be like artisan made, like a local potter or something like that. And then if it's starting to feel a little unbalanced, then going and seeking a new piece based on the antique pieces that I have. My home is not anywhere near finished, but like the things that I'm drawn to is I'm drawn to a mix of lighting for myself. I do typically like my soft goods to be new, or I'll get them off Facebook Marketplace, so they are secondhand, but they're not like decades old. But like all of my wooden finishes, I like to be like aged and patinaed and old. My brass finishes, I'm not a new shiny brass gold person. I like a good worn antique patinaed unlacquered brass look. But yeah, I personally don't follow any specific guideline. I just kind of like live my dream, which I encourage you to do. But if you're looking for guidelines, there's several ways you can break it up. Just play around and research what you like, what types of antique pieces you're drawn to, or when you're looking at designers or Pinterest or anything like that, just notice where they are using antiques and the ratios or the types of items they're using, and what aspects of that you really like is where I would start there. And just feeling out your preferences rather than a specific ratio, because even Pearson Ward, 80% antique, 20% new. Some places may more be 70-30. That it may differ per room. It's not exactly 80-20. The biggest thing here is just to experiment, start small, go to an antique store without the pressure to buy anything, take pictures, put it in a mood board, see how you can mix it with pieces from Serena and Lily or Pottery Barn or wherever. Like, go out and antique and just look. Or even because antique stores can be a little overwhelming, even just get on Etsy and look up antiques and start to train your Facebook algorithm and see what you're drawn to and save pieces. Just start small with it. You don't need an entirely vintage home, just some well-placed pieces. It's better for the planet. It creates a feeling of warmth and uniqueness in your home and communicates your personal style, which the process of antiquing helps you uncover your personal style. It's not a race. It is a years-long process. Social media can definitely feel like we have to rush to finish our spaces to make them look like everyone else's, but home takes time, and that's okay. If you already love antiquing and thrifting, please share with me in the comments below what your favorite find has been on your trips. And if you're interested in home and DIY related content, I hope you'll consider subscribing and coming back for more. Until next time, I'm wishing you all my best. If you're looking for some more inspiration when it comes to antique shopping and want to see how I navigate a store and come up with ideas for pieces, I'll go ahead and create a playlist for you down in the corner there for you to check out if you're interested.